Yeah, you can go.
All right, well, hey guys, welcome to our next presentation. It's going to be by Ryan Banta. And Ryan, am I saying your last name?
Yeah,
Okay.
like Santa with the B.
Okay. And so Ryan, for those of you guys that might remember, he was actually here in 2017 or 2018.
Yeah.
So I couldn't believe it was that long ago. I felt like it was a lot more recent than that. But anyway, Ryan is a sprints coach. He's a mid-distance coach. He's a cross-country coach. Kind of coaches at all different levels. He's going to give us kind of talk a little bit about coaching and whatnot. He is a member of the Missouri Track and Field Cross Country Coaches Association Hall of Fame. He's been the USAT Track and Field Cross Country Girls Coach of the Year in 2022, and he's also been Missouri Coach of the Year in 21 and 22. He's the author of the Sprinter's Compendium, which is actually a book I've bought and I've used quite extensively, and it's a phenomenal. I was going to bring it today and I kind of forgot to, but phenomenal read if you're interested in that. And he's been a successful high school coach. His athletes have achieved 147 school records, 10 top 5 team finishes at the state championship, team state title in 2022, 10 district champions, 10 district championships, 8 district runner-up finishes, 12 conference team titles, 285 state semifinalists, 208 state qualifiers, 3 state records in the 2-mile, 4x8, and 100 high hurdles, 23 national ranked events, 187 all-state medalists, 23 state champions, 24 runner-up performances, and 3 Gatorade Athletes of the Year, all done in a single gender at Parkway Central High School, which I believe is St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In
Suburb of
Missouri.
St. Louis.
All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Banta.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it a lot. Okay, so a lot of times as educators and coaches, we get asked, what do you teach, right? And as a teacher, you're like, math, social studies, special education, English, chemistry, whatever. As a track coach, track and field coach, you're like, I'm a throws coach, I'm a 400-meter person, I'm a sprint person, I'm feed the cats, I'm critical mass, Clyde Hart. Okay, that answer is wrong. Okay, you know what the right answer is? I coach kids. I teach kids. That's the job. Today I'm going to talk about all the mistakes and stuff that I've went through as a case study in a lot of the kids that you're going to coach and maybe where you're at currently as a coach. And so sports for me, and I say this and I mean this in every sense of the word, were life-saving. Okay? I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't do drugs. I had 2 great parents, but I wasn't a very happy kid. I had very few friends in elementary school, and I was picked on all the time. I was bullied all the time, and thankfully, I became pretty good at sports, and that opened doors for me to finally risk trying to just ask a kid to come to my house and have like what we call now a play date, to stay over or to come play video games or whatever. I didn't have any friends until sports, I didn't have any confidence. And my mom and dad, God love them, they're like, you're a great kid, you're a sweet, wonderful kid, we love you, you're so smart, you're this and that. I didn't believe any of that. But sports allowed me to have a window into, well, maybe that's a possibility. Maybe I am that person. Maybe I am that kid. And I'm sure you're not going to believe this, but I was an early mature. I was one of the kids that they had to check the birth certificate on. You know what I mean? Because I was shaving, no joke, in 6th grade. And the first time I shaved, I accidentally gave myself a Vanilla Ice haircut, and it wasn't intentional. Okay, even though he was really popular for 3 months in 6th grade, and it just happened to be what happened. But, and I was basketball was actually my first sport, which, that's probably not where I ended up, right? So I went from being a center to a power forward to a short forward to a shooting guard to a point guard to on the bench to off the team, right? So that's what happened. But it was my first entry into kind of elite sports. And I was really fast, and it was really something that was quickly becoming my best sport, even if it wasn't my favorite sport. Okay, now today is a lot of stories. So I know that we've got an hour, and I appreciate you staying here, and I promise that at the end, you might shed a tear or two about different things that happen, but I hope that it inspires you. So when we look at why kids join, why do they join? Why do they become an athlete? Why do they come to you? A lot of people come to you because they have no other sport. Or maybe they're trying to get in shape for football. Or maybe because their mom and dad said they have to have an activity. Or their mom and dad, they were track and field athletes, and so their kid's going to be a track and field athlete. Think about why you decided to become a coach. Are you becoming a coach because you've had something that you have that's unfinished business? Do you have an itch that you need to scratch that you never accomplished as an athlete? Were you forced into it or voluntold by your administrator? Did you just want extra money for retirement? There's a lot of different reasons why we do this, and there's a lot of different reasons why the kids come to you. The reality is that we're supposed to change lives. That's the job. We're supposed to change lives. We're supposed to make lives better. And the scary thing about what we do is we have that ability. We have that ability. You can ruin a kid's life. You can save a kid's life. Probably most of you in this room have helped keep a kid from killing themselves. Okay? It's powerful and it's scary, but that's the job. Okay? And you guys know when we came back from COVID, we realized how important we actually were, right? Because of how unbelievably bad behaved those kids were that first year back. It's almost like, who are these kids? I don't even know kindergartners that behave this bad. It's because literally not all the parents do a good job. Just because you have the position of mom or dad doesn't mean you're a good mom or dad. And that goes for you as a coach and a teacher as well. It's a very powerful position. You need to respect it, and we're here to service the kids, to make their lives better. Okay. So, my athletic experience. I loved the feeling of moving fast. I absolutely loved it. If you've ever been a runner, a track and field sprinter or distance kid, and you've actually experienced that, it's a weird euphoria of a multi-sensory experience. There's so many things that happen, and the world feels like it's slowing down. You could have your mom or dad screaming, go, 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 right next to you, and you can't hear them at all. And there's nothing that feels better than having a great performance. If you're a thrower and it feels like it didn't even come off your hands, right? And you're blocking, and then you look up and see the dust of where the shot put landed, and you're like, holy crap. There's nothing that feels as good as that. And for the people who have never done this sport, they don't understand, right? They don't get the nervousness that comes from it. Like if you ever played football or basketball, I was never as nervous as I was for a track and field meet because there's nowhere to hide. But I loved the feeling. It felt good to be fast, kind of like that Flash character, and not the really bad movie with what's his face, the guy who like kidnapped a kid and everything, and they didn't like throw him out of the movie. I'm like, what are we doing here? They like ruined the Flash character. But in the comics, it's just like this weird slowing down, and it really, really happens like that. And I mean, obviously, that was like when I was in 4th grade, by the way. You know, when I was in my little Flash costume that my mom made for me, by the way, and everybody thought it was awesome, not ironically. Okay. And so I was faster than most kids because I literally, like I said, was an adult in a child's body. And so my freshman year, I made varsity, and our team was extraordinarily good. It was the best team we had ever had, okay? And I was all conference as a freshman, and I ended up being a part of a relay and the 4x4 as an alternate. And one of our, good athletes got hurt doing the 300 hurdles, fell, and tore his hamstring at the state championship. And he's like our best guy. And so basically all the designs of us being a state championship trophy team in track that year went out the window with him being hurt. But Coach Warren, who will make an appearance later in the story, came to me and said, hey, Ryan, would you like to run? He gave me the option because he's a good guy. And I'm like, oh, Coach, I I don't know that I should do that. I think the alternate who's a senior should be the one to run. I'm only a freshman. Well, that senior, who by the way got thrown in jail at one point, okay, unceremoniously got us disqualified. So one of the opportunities for me to finish with the state medal, because I was going to run in the state finals, so all we had to do was get the baton around, because there were only 8 teams, I'd have been all state. But I was like young, and I'm like, oh, I got plenty of time, to do that. I'll do that. And it was the right thing for me to let the senior run, because that was his last chance. Well, my sophomore year, I came down, I got Crohn's disease. And for any of you that knows what that is, it's ulcerated intestines and you just get whittled away. And so my body took a big hit. Separated my shoulder my sophomore year, came back in the spring. I was really fast, but my body was lacking some of the nutrients it needed. And I also quit basketball because I wanted to concentrate on track and field. So underweight, underpowered, and I didn't have the fitness from basketball. So guess what happened early on in the track and field season? I got hurt. And what do you do as a person when your entire existence is wrapped up in being an athlete? I went from having no friends and no peers and nobody who would want to talk to me, girls that didn't want to be around me, none of that, okay? To then being a good athlete and getting a lot of attention and a lot of kudos and a lot of props and a lot of popularity, and to have that ripped out from underneath me. It was going to be taken. So right before the first track meet of our sophomore year, the day before, we're doing handoffs, okay? But before we go and do handoffs, I was triple jumping because I was a pretty good freshman athlete and I could do a lot of different things. Well, you guys know that triple jump is often where good athletes go to die, because of how brutal it can be on the body with overzealous coaches. And our jump coach wasn't my mentor and colleague and friend, Coach Warren, different event, different group. So I'm cooled down and I'm about ready to walk off the track. And Coach Warren says, hey, Ryan, you still got to do handoffs and 4x1. So I've had a full jump practice, right? I've cooled down. And mentally, I've checked out. But I'm trying to be a pleasing kid because at that time, I did want to do everything I could for my coaches. So I go over there, put my spikes on, and start doing 4x1 handoffs. And I'm doing the handoff from second to third. So now you're coming in at full speed and then taking a left. And of course, because I'm tired, how did the handoff practice go? It went terrible. Over and over and over again. And over again. Coaching point. Do not do handoffs at the end of practice. Do handoffs when the kids are the freshest they can be. It gives you the best chance for the CNS to be fresh and for timing to work. Also, don't keep going over and over and over again. You're going to get diminishing returns. Also, it's the first meet of the year. Who cares if the handoffs are great? Okay? We now in my program do 4 handoffs. And if you can't get it in 4, we're done. We can try to do it again a little bit, which by the way, you should monitor them at the meet. And if we can't get 2 or 3 in, we're done. That's it. Don't just keep doing it over and over again. And so I told my coach after about the 7th one, Coach, let's just do 1 more. If an athlete tells you, hey, let's just do 1 more, and you're seeing a bad performance, what do you tell them? You tell them, no, you're done. It's okay. It's gonna be fine, right? I don't know if you guys have ever been in drama or theater. Usually a bad rehearsal actually leads to a good performance because you got, oh shit, we better get our stuff together, right? So of course I take off on the 7th or 8th rep and I'm running my teammate Dominique, whose niece will come up in this story later. I hit his foot, we take a funny step, and I hear, pop, in the back of my leg. Something like I've never felt before. I couldn't support myself on that leg. I couldn't move it, and I was in extreme pain. I had torn my hamstring, like the highest grade tear you could probably have, okay? To make matters worse, my teammate, Dominique, good friend, runs up to coach. I heard it. I heard it pop. So now I'm almost going into like shock, and I'm freaking out. Now, I'm a dumb sophomore. I don't realize how bad I'm hurt. That track meet was our first track meet before spring break. I go on spring break with my parents to a beach. The only time in my life I've ever done that, by the way. I'm not some spoiled kid. I don't get to do that a lot. But my buddy, who I took with me, and I always want to be cool on the beach, and so we're trying to run routes to the beach, and I injure myself like, 2 more times in the beach a week later. Come back to school, talking to a girl. I got a lot of tardies. If I get one more tardy, I get a detention. Talking to the girl in the hallway because, this ain't handsome. I got to work really hard to get a date. And the bell rings, and so I turn to dive in, heard it again. So now I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be stupid. Get to about the end of the season, and I heard it for a 4th time. And because of my ignorance and my wanting to rush back and just being a young, dumb kid, I had injured myself so many times that, I was done. I was never going to be the high school track and field athlete that I could have been. And I re-injured myself pretty much every year from there on out, my junior and senior year. And even my junior and senior year, I got hit with a double whammy because my great mentor, Coach Warren, he got a very serious colon and intestinal disease, and he was gone for basically the entirety of those 2 track and field seasons. So I was left completely rudderless. Okay. And I was a good teammate, and I was a good supporter of the team. And it's kind of funny because I tried to recruit every possible kid I could get out into the program and on the team. And we did really well. We won our first district championship ever in our school's history for the boys team. And one of the guys I finally convinced to come out halfway through his junior year of high school, by the time he was done as a senior, he ran the state record in the 400-meter dash. I felt good. I felt like I made a mark. But it's one thing from, watching it from the stands in admiration, and it's a completely other thing to actually be participating in the process as an athlete. So I was good enough that I could, run at Carthage College in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Some of you guys that are D3 people probably know that school. They got a really good indoor facility. They didn't when I went there. All right. And I was probably the worst kid you could ever coach. Because I went from being this nice kid who would do everything you asked to being a coach's nightmare, an absolute nightmare. What does that look like? Modestly talented, very opinionated, and often hurt. I would not have wanted to coach me. I would have very much disliked me, okay? And to make matters worse, I was dating the best girl, or woman, young lady, on the track team. Now, they of course thought I was a problem for her. I was actually the one stable, normal thing in her life, but he didn't know that. And if I'm coaching, in my first 10 years as a high school coach, I'd have felt a certain way about a dude dating my best athlete because I wouldn't have had a mature perspective on it. And the person who was coaching me day to day, it was like one of her first 3 years as a coach. And I owe that coach an apology. I dodged workouts. I was in self-preservation mode. I wouldn't show up to things because I didn't want to get hurt. Now I'd come to the meets and I tried to compete as much as I could, and I kept getting hurt. Now, I had modest success. I was all conference in the 100, and I was a part of a record relay for a very rarely run relay, an indoor 4x2. These are things that don't often, get run. But I had a little bit of success and everything. But I was never able to put it together the way that I would have wanted. So finally, I got sick and tired of having all these problems, and I kept saying, none of the coaches would believe me. Like, you're not really hurt. I'm like, no, I got something like crunchy back here. I don't know what it is, and it feels weird, and I've got like numbness and all this kind of stuff back here. It doesn't feel right. And I had gone to the doctor a ton, but back then they weren't doing MRIs very often, right? Like you needed to have like potentially cancer, or like knee ligament tears for them to do an MRI. So they just didn't do it. But I finally had a doctor that said, we keep taking an x-ray of you head on. Let's just turn you like this and take an x-ray. And what did they find in the back? They found like a pinky bone worth of bone floating in the back of my hamstring. I had had so many calcifications and so much scar tissue that it crystallized and turned into bone. So, I actually did have something wrong with me. There was a real injury there. I wasn't faking, you know. And if I would have done it all over again as a coach, and I was so wanting to get strong and get big and run the 100-meter dash, because that's the event I wanted to run. But in hindsight, I should have ran the 400, you know. And if my kid was hurt, I would have believed that they were hurt. And I would have tried to give them as much treatment and care and understanding as I could. And I would figure out that this is a pattern of behavior that they keep trying to leave on hard days. Why don't I talk to them and try to ensure them and comfort them that they need to be here? And I know that's hard for you because you just want the kids to do what you want them to do. But there are reasons why the kids behave the way that they do, and it is our job as coaches to figure that out and to maximize those kids' experiences. So that's that situation. So after college, I had an opportunity to work for a really powerful person who ended up being a Speaker of the House for the United States government. And you can put that together and think about where my politics might have used to have been, all right? And I didn't take the job because I'm an only child of only children. And I had an opportunity to work in St. Louis and to work on some political campaigns here in Missouri, or at Missouri. And I don't know if you've ever heard this, but politics is a dirty business, right? Like, how is it that these guys become multi-millionaires after serving a 2-year term in Congress, right? Like, they get to insider trade and stuff. And I found out that a lot of the people that I was working on these campaigns for locally didn't actually represent the ideals that they pretended to on TV and in the commercials. And I'm like, oh crap, I didn't take the job in Washington, D.C. I worked with these guys, but I don't want my reputation to be attached to them. What am I supposed to do? And I had a really good college experience, and now I feel like I'm a bust in life. You know, my parents are, you've got to get a job. We paid for this college. You've got to get a job. You've got to start paying your own bills. And I don't know what to do. And my mom was like, I think you'd be a great teacher. Now, my mom was the teacher, okay? Parkway Teacher of the Year, finalist for the state of Missouri. They're making up awards to give to my mom. I'm like, there is absolutely no way that I could fill your shoes. And my dad wouldn't let me be a cop. He said, I'll shoot you if you become a cop. And my dad is 6'2", 289 pounds, you know, big man not to be trifled with. And so I couldn't go in his career of being a cop. So I was kind of stuck. But I said, you know, I've always kind of wanted to coach because I kind of have some unfinished business in sport. Maybe I'll go ask my old mentor if I can go hang out with him and, you know, teach him all the stuff I know now, right? And I showed up on a day, and this is before Twitter, and thank God TikTok's gonna be banned here soon. Sorry, some of you guys like TikTok, you're rotting your brain. Okay, but and before really email was a common thing, there was no texting and no internet to see what the calendar was, and my mom was retired, and I show up on a professional development day. You know, those days where you don't get anything done, and it's an absolute waste of time, and you just have to show up, and your administrators try to have you redo the same, you know, classroom expectation learning, whatever, the 7th and 8th time that you've done it, right? But I didn't know it was that. I'm going up there cold calling my old mentor, Coach Warren. And I'm going to say this, and I don't want for some of you who are not very religious. I believe that sometimes fate knocks on the door and you should answer the door. And sometimes fate gets impatient, kicks the door open, grabs you by the shirt, and drags you out of the house. I open up that door to the high school, and the first person I see is Coach Warren. Coach Warren's an art teacher. He has no business standing at the front door. His particular part of the building is like 7 minutes back into campus. And he's like, Banta, what are you doing here? And I was always called Banta. I was never called Ryan because I'm like a creature, which also was bad for the ladies when you're a thing as a human. And that's where I kind of knew my wife kind of liked me because she'd always call me Ryan. It's funny, when she got married to me, she went from being called Michelle to now Banta at work. It's I'm like, see, you know what it's like. But anyway, and I'm like, well, Coach Warren, I came here to see you. And he's like, for what? And I'm like, well, I kind of wanted to know if I could help you this upcoming track and field season. And he goes, you couldn't have come at a better time. He steps to the side, and there's all the assistant coaches sitting at a table getting ready to talk about the schedule and the upcoming event and all that kind of stuff. Well, of course, after a week and a half of the season, I realized Mom was right. Ladies and gentlemen, as much as we hate to admit it, moms are always right. You know, and it takes us a while to realize that. And that meant I had to go back to college and get a degree in teaching and all my different paperwork and get all the certifications and do all that kind of stuff. And thank God that my first year as my first year with Steve went really well. And then Parkway had a position open up for the girls' head coaching job. My second year out of college. And only coaching experience was that 1 year with Coach Warren as a volunteer. And they wanted to hire anybody but me. But I was their absolute last option. And I even had to call them 2 weeks out and say, hey, I kind of had this job offer at this other school. I'd really like to coach here, but we're 2 weeks out from the season. I kind of need to know. And that was kind of a lie. You know, that school had talked to me many months prior and I had not communicated with them because I wanted to be back at my old high school. I wanted to do that, you know. And thankfully they did hire me. And we had a ton of success right away. A ton of success. We broke the school record in the 100, the 200, the 400, the 4x1, and the 4x2. But that is the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. Why was it the worst thing? Somebody help me out. Yeah.
Standard is so high, how can you replicate it, maybe?
Yeah. High standards. How am I going to replicate it? What else would be a problem? Even bigger than that.
You probably got a big head.
Oh, I do? Look how big this head is. It's huge. I got a cannonball on my shoulders, right? And like, I thought, oh, see? Oh, look how big of a genius I am. I know everything. I didn't. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. I'll finish that story up in a second. But let's talk about Coach Warren. What are things that I've learned from Coach Warren? Coach Warren used to drive me nuts because on the weekends I couldn't get a hold of him. I'm like, dude, I got to talk to you about this workout. We got to talk about this workout. We got to talk about the meet. He's like, Ryan, this is my family time. Don't call me. We need to do a meet on the weekend. No, we don't. Weekends are reserved for family. Now this man has like, he's got like a half dozen children, you know, and all this kind of stuff. He, you know, God would be very happy with him, you know, for proliferating. But I didn't understand that. So if you have to sacrifice family to be successful, that's not successful. Urban Meyer wrote a book. Here's what I'm going to do to be a great dad. In that book, he wrote the contract. And then what did he do? He starts cheating on his wife at a bar when he doesn't fly back with the team on a plane with some bar at a restaurant he's promoting. You know, it's like a real good family man. So when you schedule your track meets, you better know what your kid's schedule is if you can. They got a dance recital, you're going to the dance recital. You know, and your assistant coaches, unless it's, you know, sectionals or subsectionals where you're showing up to the dance recital. They can get it done without you with the other coaches there, and you can take turns. You know, if you've got off-season conditioning, not every coach needs to be there every day. You guys can rotate. You know, you need to be there with your family. And it's really hard to be present. We give so much time to other people's children, right? That sometimes when we get home, we don't have enough energy for our own kids, let alone our wife. So when it gets to 8:30 p.m., I have a rule for all my students and all my athletes. You are not allowed to reach out and communicate with me. You're not allowed to email me. It can wait till 7:15 tomorrow morning because I'm going to want to solve the problem. I'm going to want to fix it for you. And while I'm fixing that problem, I'm creating a problem with my kids because I promised them I'd read them Harry Potter or play farting Frenchies with them, which, by the way, if you got little kids, look that game up. It's awesome, right? But you got to be present. You got to be there for them. Don't sacrifice your family. You can be good without that. Okay. Now, challenging kids. You can have obnoxious kids, and they're going to piss you off. Those are the kids you love on the most. And I don't care if they're talented or not, by the way. Okay? Because the talented kid, you're like, yeah, I'll tolerate this because they're really a great athlete and all this kind of stuff. you know. But that other kid that's not, you love on them too. Because even the worst kid you have in your classroom desires structure. And even if they don't know they desire it, they definitely need it. Because we know what it was like when we came back from COVID. Okay? So that's really important. Also, anybody basketball coaches in here? I know it's basketball season. Anybody here? Okay. So in basketball, they talk about sometimes it's good for the kids to see you take a technical. Kids need to see you fight for them. You guys have games committees or stuff like that, you know what I'm talking about? Or if there's like a breaking of a rule or an interpretation. Even if your kid doesn't deserve it, you got to fight for your kid. You know, now don't cut your nose off to spite your face or do something immoral, but you should fight for your kid. And they need to see you fight for them because they know you love them and they respect you. Okay? I tell all my kids, I love you on the very first day of class. And of course, how do you think that goes with some of those kids? They're like, this old biscuit head looking, ugly, Snow Rogan looking, right? Like, that ain't good. And I tell them, I go, you shouldn't believe me. And if you do believe me right now, I kind of worry about you a little bit. You know, I said, but my job is over the course of time that we have together this semester, this year, and your career as a high school student, I'm going to make you know that's true. Not just because I love you doesn't mean I like you all the time. You're going to do many things that I don't like, but I love you unconditionally. There's a difference. Okay? Now, he also talks about this as a line he gives me all the time. He goes, don't shuffle, take big steps. How do you know someone's old or sick? Right? They have that cadence. And you're like, oh God, they look terrible. Right? Now, what do I mean by that in coaching and teaching? Demand big things from your kids. Have high expectations. Talk about things that you want to accomplish. If you're not the one talking about it, they might not ever believe it's true. Right? Be bold. Ask big things from your administrators, right? Don't just let them, well, this is how it's got to be. You can't run in the hallways anymore because kids are on cell phones and they could get hit if they're on the cell phone. You know what you tell the administrator? The kid shouldn't be on the cell phone. They should walk without a cell phone. That's a problem, you know? Why are we letting them on Twitter when, you know, suicide rate amongst young ladies has gone through the roof since that particular thing has started? All right, think about that. Think about that. Mark Zuckerberg's responsible for thousands of deaths of teenagers. Right? It's kind of scary. Now, do I use Instagram? Yeah, I do. But I'm a grown adult with a fully formed lobe. At least I think I do. Right? But ask big things from your administrator. You want to go to the out-of-town track meet? You want to go out of state? You want to go to Nike Nationals? You want to go to Foot Locker? Demand and make that an expectation. We qualified both the boys and girls team to the state championship in cross country, and both the boys and girls team, which by the way are coached by different coaches, both trophied this year. I knew we had a chance to do that. I contacted our athletic director. I said, I want the band to play us out of the building. Well, we don't, you guys qualify somebody every year. I go, no, one kid I get, but this is two full teams that both are gonna go and make some serious noise. There's rare opportunities to celebrate people like this. You're going to have kids stand out in the hallway, you're going to play the band, and we're going to walk out. Now, why should I have to even bring that up? Because sometimes administrators are just that stupid. Do you know what I mean? And so we have to ask big things from them, and not in a disrespectful way. Now, I say that the tough kids need love, but sometimes the most talented kids got to go. I had a young lady who is by far the most manipulative person I've ever coached. It was unreal. She's going to make a really bad, upset partner someday in life if she ever finds somebody who will marry her. And she was just manipulating the team and being disrespectful and rude to assistant coaches. And I gave her the business away from everybody else. And I kicked her out of practice. I never had that problem again. Don't be afraid to cut the best kid. Coach Warren, he tells kids all the time, he goes, I've cut many more talented people than you. He goes, you're not special. He goes, I'll cut you too, because your performance doesn't change my life and what goes on with my wife at home and my family and my happiness at all. I'm not going to let a crazy 16 to 18-year-old child ruin everyone else's experience, because they're also kids that I am charged with creating a great experience for. You're not going to ruin it for all of them. This young lady that I have, which we can hardly see because the lighting is here is not great, is the most challenging kid I've ever coached recently. Her name's Skylee. She's a stud kid. And so the one thing I've got down here is everyone's a hurdler until they're not. You've heard me say that already. This young lady was pretty good at the 300 hurdles as a freshman. She was third in the state. And she was third in the 100-meter dash. She didn't want to run the 100 hurdles. Now, usually it's the reverse, right? You don't want to do the long race. You want to do the short race. But if any of you guys are hurdle coaches, the 100 hurdles is harder to coach because it actually requires them to know how to what? Hurdle. Like, you know, the girls can just go, you know, and run over the short ones. That's why, you know, Sydney McLaughlin-Moreau is so fast, and Femke Bol, I mean, they're 6 foot tall, and they're just like walking over it and running a 400, you know. And she's like, I don't want to run the 100 hurdles. I go, girl, you just ran a 12 flat as a freshman in the 100-meter dash, you know, and you were third in the state in the 300. You don't have a choice. You're running the 100 hurdles. And last year, in her last 100 hurdle race ever, she broke her own state record for the 5th time. What if you didn't do that? What if you were just satisfied with the kid? Well, this is what they're good at. I'm not going to change their event. I'm not going to dare them to dream bigger. I'm just going to go the easy route. And this kid is a challenge. So difficult to coach. Such a challenge. But I was committed to 4 years. And I had a coach come up to me who just wanted to coach her last year, and she ended up not coaching with us. I said, well, what are you going to do with Sky? I go, I'm going to make her a better teammate. What? That's your plan? I go, yeah. What else do I need to do at this point? She's going to go to a university, Florida. She's running today, okay? And who knows how she's going to run? I have no idea, okay? But like, she's going to be in the Widowmaker. She's going to be fire and brimstone every day with Coach Holloway. I said, she needs to know how to be a good teammate. She needs to know how it is to like help out people and be a leader. So that's my number one goal. She won the state championship her junior year in the 100 hurdles, the 100 dash, the 300, and the 200. The first female athlete to win 4 individual titles. And she was the fastest in 3 of those 4 races statewide. And the next year she came back and it was a different situation. There's some better girls in her class and she was out of shape. She didn't train, she wasn't ready. And about 5 weeks out, you know, from the end of the season, she's having a really bad day. And I could have ignored it and I could have left it alone. And she was being kind of rude. And so I pull her aside and I say, hey, can I have a conversation with you? Yeah. And remember, even the toughest kids need the most love. I go, can I speak freely? Yes. I go, are you a little worried that all that hype you got last year was not real? Are you worried that Florida giving you a full ride and you're not going to live up to expectations? Are you worried that these other girls who have kind of risen or transferred into different classifications in our state are maybe going to beat you? She just starts bawling. I said, you know that they are scared to death of you? And I switched the conversation. I go, do you realize you're the most talented kid we've ever had in our school's history? Do you realize that it is impossible to do what you do as a fluke? And do you realize Florida has won multiple national titles because they don't miss? They know who to recruit? I said, that's what's true. I said, but what's also true is you're not in shape. I said, and you've been not the easiest person to coach, and you've not let me coach you the way that you need to be coached. Are you willing to do all the things you've never done before for me? We got 5 weeks. I can make it impossible for these people to beat you unless they have to break a state record to do it. And so what did we do? She worked harder than she's ever worked in her entire life. And she ran 2 PRs in the 100 hurdles, ran 3 PRs in the 200, ran a PR in the 300 hurdles, is now 3rd all time in the 300 hurdles in all classes in the state of Missouri. And she did get beat in the 100 meter dash because they took a classification out and moved it to a different weekend. So she only had 10 minutes instead of 20 minutes in between. So she basically ran down, got her medal after breaking another state record, waved at the crowd, and had to go down and get in the blocks. And then the girl who beat her had to run the fastest time ever in that classification to beat her. And now, of course, I'm upset because I would have liked her to win 4 championships again. But now I'm aware of my ego and aware of my neurosis. So I step away from the stands and the other kids and the coaches because we got time before she's going to come back anyway. And she's not a real good verbal communicator. So we communicate way better through email or text. And so I'm thinking about, what do I say? And so I write her, I'm like, Sky, think about how impressive it is what you've accomplished in everything that you've done so far. Think about where we were 5 weeks ago and how you're on pace to break all these school records and state records. And it took that girl running the best race in Missouri history to beat you after 10 minutes earlier you broke the state record. And she goes, thanks, coach. She goes, I'm going to pray about it, and I'm going to do my best to represent my team in the best way I can with these next 2 races. That kid would have never said that, you know, even before that season started. So make sure you find kids that do a lot of things, demand that they seek excellence, and hold them accountable. All right, so School of Hard Knocks. How much time do I have, Coach?
You've got 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, we can get it done. That first year we were really successful. I thought I knew everything. I had the big head. We didn't have another all-state athlete for another 4 years after that. So we had all these all-state events, all these school records, and then we were okay. We were okay, but we just couldn't get to the state championship because it was like, you get 4 kids, we had no auto qualifiers like you guys have, and so we just happened to be in a really tough district, even though a lot of times we had the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th best team or kid. And so we're looking pretty bad. And I'm not learning my lessons yet. I'm blaming everyone, you know, blaming everyone but myself. It's everybody else's fault because I'm an immature person. And my assistant coach, who ended up teaching with me, big burly man, Ken Greathouse is his name, great coach as well, great teacher. He comes up to me the first day of this kind of, after the season started and we're doing off-season conditioning. He goes, Ryan, if you don't get better, if you don't get more organized, if you don't start worrying about other things in our program besides your tiny little group of sprinters, he goes, if you don't get your shit together, he goes, I'm never going to coach with you ever again. And he goes, I'm going to make sure you never coach here ever again. Because I wasn't a teacher yet at the school. I'm still just kind of a freelancing coach. To make matters worse, there was this coach uptown, that guy right there, who was really good, and he used to annoy me. He was super enthusiastic and obnoxious. I didn't like the sound of his voice, and I would judge, like, he's putting these kids in these events and all this kind of stuff, and oh my God, you know, if I had his school's twice as big as mine, and it sucks to be at the bottom of 3A in Minnesota, and they're twice as big. If we were at the other division, we'd be so much better. I made all these judgments. But I did listen to Ken Greathouse, and I did get better. I started seeking the advice of local coaches who I did respect and I did admire. And I met this coach, Sean Burris, who mentored me and Coach Buckvar. If you were in his sessions last year, Coach Buckvar, remember the little guy, the sprint guy who was here? Okay, great coach, by the way. Boys and girls team won the state championship last year. First time a coach has won coaching both in a large division. That guy can coach. Okay, and so I got the X's and O's. And I really leaned on Coach Warren to help me be more organized so that my coaches knew what was going on, basic logistical stuff, you know, and things like that. And I communicated better. And I went to a level 1 school, right? And I had signed up for a level 2 school after that. I got a lot better. And a year later, Coach Greathouse, as we were on the precipice of winning our first district title for the girls as a team ever, which I guess is like your subsectional or something like that. He comes up to me and he says, Banta, you're on the way to being a good coach. From the year before telling me he's going to end me, essentially, you know? And that meant a lot because that man taught me. He was one of my teachers in high school. I went back to my old school and coached, and this guy was one of my teachers. So this was important. But what about that guy that was up the street that used to make me mad and kick butt and so much better and all that kind of stuff? Well, we win our first district title. It's awesome, and we're hooping and hollering and screaming, and I'm not gracious in defeat and humble in victory. I'm not humble in victory at all. And I'm cheering and screaming, and I'm so pumped up, you know, we're running around the track making a fool of ourselves, okay? Because I'm still a young, dumb kid in all sense and purposes. Who's the first guy to come up and shake my hand and tell me congratulations? Coach Carey. So once again, Coach Carey served me some humble pie. I had never in my life to that point, 5 years of coaching, shaken the victor's hand. Not because I was malicious, like screw that guy. I just never even thought of that's a thing you should do. Now, Coach Carey, from there on out, he's one of my best friends now. I mean, he coaches with me at 78 years old, okay? And he's one of my best friends, and he's a wonderful human being. And what does Coach Carey do? Coach Carey is a guy who will go to a bar, and you know how this is, some of your best professional development is after our talks, right? And he goes and pull hurdles out to show hurdle drills. He's the greatest guy. And a long time ago, before my book was complete, there was a coach that quipped to me one time, Banta, I don't know if I would write that book and give away all your secrets. Then you lose your advantage. Well, Coach Carey doesn't believe in that. Because it's not the recipe, ladies and gentlemen. It's the cook, right? The cook matters. And why can't everybody be successful? Like, if you don't have your little Justice League of coaches that you get together with to problem solve things and cheer each other on and help each other out with workouts, what are you doing? Track and field is the best sport because 8, 9, 10 lanes on a track, all those kids can PR. Every kid in a throwing flight can PR. Everybody gets victory. And the reality is, I'm sorry, I get emotional, but the point is, it's not about us winning, guys. It's about those kids having that experience. And Coach Carey understands that. He's like, if I can help that kid out, I can help that coach out. Everybody that coach coaches from there on out is going to have a better coach and a better experience and a more close to maximal potential performance. What a cool thing. What a great thing to have a couple Hall of Famers, on your side. All right. I've told this story a couple times, but so for those of us that have heard it, I apologize. Now, you get to become a good coach. You get to become organized. You're prepared. You're ready to go. But what if you got a kid that hits all the workouts great in practice, does everything, does all the training, has a ton of talent, all the markers, just like I said on the testing. Everything says this kid should be all state. And every single time when pressure is on, they fold up the tents and they don't run well. Well, that was Kara. Kara had run really well throughout cross country and track, get to the end, get to the district title, and just absolutely choke. And it was incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. And not frustrated because I didn't like the kid. I was in a better place at this point. I'm frustrated because I'm not doing my job. What am I missing? Thankfully, though, because she ran fast every year until districts, she had a whole lot of results on direct athletics and mile split and athletic.net or whatever. And she went to Butler University, her dream school for medical school and things that she wanted to do. And she's like, well, I'll go out, talk to the coach and see if I can walk on. I'll just see. So she goes, talks to the coach. Coach is like, yeah, your training logs look great. Your times look great. So you want to walk on, we'll throw a jersey at you. And she's like, well, you mean I can run for Butler? Yes, Kara. If you're willing to work hard and you're a good kid, you can absolutely run here. Well, thank God for that coach, because he flipped something in Kara that I was unable to flip as a coach. Wasn't able to get it done. She goes out, we have an exit ticket mile, which we talked about. She runs the fastest mile that she's ever run in her life at the end of cross country because she went to do the visit before the season was done. And I said, Kara, what do you think this means? And this is what she says, because this is where her headspace was still at. She's like, well, I guess I don't suck as much as I thought I did. No, Kara, you don't suck at all. You're frickin' fast. And we're going to do some really special things this spring. And thank God for that college coach, because he switched something in her. She PR'd every race, every week, 800 mile, 2 mile, whatever she was running. PR splits, PR. Runs like never seen her run before. So we get back to districts. And she gets through with flying colors. Yes! We finally slayed the dragon. We're finally past it. We get to sectionals. We have district sectionals and then state. And I'm sitting next to her father, which is not that guy, obviously. Okay, but this is how I look at track meets, okay? And I'm up at the fence. That is Kara. And, I'm like, great, it'll be a nice moment for Dad and I. We'll sit here and watch her race. And she's in the mile, and this is her big event. And she's in the mile, and she's running. And I'm like, all right, great, everything's gonna, she's slayed the dragon. She's finally done it. We get to about 600 meters out. She moves all the way to the back. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I wanna cuss, I wanna scream, I wanna kick the fence, but I can't, because her dad is right there, And I don't want him to think I'm mad at her. I'm literally like, God, I just can't solve this problem. What is wrong with me? That's what I'm thinking. It's my problem, right? But Kara didn't need me. Kara had changed. Kara steps out into lane 2. Yeah, she's like in 8th place out of 8 girls, and she shakes her head like this. almost to say, not again, not this time. And she throws down the hardest surge dangerously, like so fast that I'm like, ooh, I don't know. This is not maybe the strategic right choice. But she's like, I'm not going out with a whimper. I'm going to go out with a bang. If I get beat, I'm getting beat because I'm putting it on the line right here and now. And she held that thing and ran the race of her life. And she got caught by like one kid, but in Missouri it's 4 people qualify. And so she automatically, she got through and qualified and ran a huge PR. Now I'm hugging her dad, telling him I love him, I'm crying, And what I did do though, after that, I walked up to her and I said, Kara, I said, because of this experience, I have failed you. I'm so happy you've qualified for state and you've done so well. You've had a great year. But I failed you as a coach. I said, because of this experience, I never want a kid to go through what you went through. I'm changing my master's degree. I'm going to go back and not get a master's in human performance. I'm going to go get a master's in positive psychology. So a kid never has to go alone with these things without a coach, without the tools to help someone like you. Now, what I didn't share about this is this next part. Kara comes back, first year, great year, has a great season, it's awesome. She goes, Coach Banta, I wanted to share something with you. Oh, what's that? I figured out what I want to do in medical school. Oh, well, what's that, Kara? And she's like, I'm going to do fertility medicine. Because what I didn't share with you is that my wife and I had a horrible time trying to get pregnant. Tens of thousands of dollars and, just not being able to get to the finish line with the child. And we had a really hard couple of pregnancies. And thank God I've been blessed with some beautiful kids. And my wife is blind. She doesn't realize how, ugly this man she's married. I'm joking. She's not blind. Yeah, I'm ugly. That's the point. She's pretty. But anyway, and she said, I've decided to do fertility medicine because I don't want families to go through what you went through without a doctor to help them. Guys, that's what this is about. I'm sorry, I always get emotional. But that's the permanent feedback loop of positivity that you want, right? That's the type of relationships that you're trying to foster, create, and nurture. All right. So I'm a control freak. How much time I got? 5 minutes, Coach? What do I got?
8 minutes.
8 minutes? Okay, good. And so after a while, you get really good, you get really organized. Well, then you kind of go in the opposite direction if you weren't a person who's organized and you try to control too much. I was trying to write everybody's workouts and all this kind of stuff and not really letting my assistant coaches coach. And this assistant coach on the left is Coach Burnett. She's the assistant coach of the year. That particular year, her family's like royalty in Southern Illinois track. She's a phenomenal human being. And she pulled me aside. She goes, we got to talk. I'm like, what's up? She goes, you're a control freak. I go, Coach, come on. She's like, no, you are. She goes, you're not letting us kind of do what we need to do to be our own coaches with our kids. She goes, you got to stop doing that. You got to let us have our freedom and our event. And we need to be able to write our own stuff. And we also, by the way, need good athletes. You can't just keep all the athletes. And she leans in with a twinkle in her eye and she says, it's not just track, Coach. It's track and field. She was right. And I did everything I could to adjust and to add athletes in and to give everybody 3 or 4 athletes and allow them to write their own workouts and to do all that kind of stuff. Because the reality is while they may not do it the way you want them to do it, what if they do something and it works really well? What if it doesn't work really well? Well, it's not winning or losing, it's winning and learning. It's an opportunity for them to learn, to figure it out, and then they can adjust. But if it does go well, then it's better for them and it's better for all of us, and you get better too because of those choices they made. And now I will jump and hurdle you to death as a coach in an invitational meet or a dual or a tri meet. And I put all the events out there. Even if the kids are not great, we're going to fill out the rosters because my assistant coaches deserve to have people who can coach. They deserve to learn how it is to work with a good athlete, and that athlete should be the best athlete for that event. And if it happens to be their event, so be it. They get to coach that kid and you don't meddle and interfere. Let them coach. Don't be a control freak. Let them explore. Let them develop. Let them get better and give them ownership to train their kids. Now, this is kind of the end here. So we get to the state championship in 2021. We lose 2020. We all did, right? So since last time I've been here and come back, the world fell apart, and now we've been rebuilding. And regardless of what you think about the virus, it affected lives, okay? Whatever you think of it, it affected lives, destroyed businesses, killed people, hurt people medically, created divisions in families, politics, all that stuff. Terrible, terrible, terrible. And I lost the best team I was ever gonna have. It was a team that finished third, okay? And it eventually was part of the team that eventually won. And so I'm thinking in 2020 when they canceled the world, I'm like, crap, this was my one shot at winning. It was devastating. So the next year comes around and we lose that, and I'm so upset and I'm so mad and all this kind of stuff. And I'm so frustrated. But hey, we got track season, and the kids that are coming back in 2021 are gonna be really good. We get to the last event, 4x4. I'm getting text messages, congratulations on winning your first team state title. Ooh, don't ever do that. That's bad mojo. Okay, there's a reason why you say break a leg. I don't tell my kids good luck. Like when Emily Sisson, American record holder in the marathon, I only congratulate her after. I told her I'm never gonna say anything to you before a big performance. Because every time I do, you don't run well. And it's not me, it's just me being weird and superstitious. But anyway, but don't do that. And what they didn't know had happened is that we were the best team in the state for the 4x4, but that girl that I told you that's real difficult to coach, who was a big problem, well, she didn't win the 300 hurdles her freshman year. She got third, like I told you. She was upset, went up into the stands. We couldn't find her. Don't have her cell phone number, don't know where she's at, and she's one of our alternates. Okay, she's gone. All right, then our girl that's like our second best 400 meter girl happened to be our best long jumper. She PRs as a huge long jump, becomes all state, tears her meniscus in that last jump and is peg legging like this. I'm like, oh, well, let's see what she looks like when she walks down the steps. And when she was like, and I'm like, that ain't running. So then I had to go find my second alternate. At this time, we only have 6. We don't have 8. Now we have 8. It's crazy, crazy. But okay, whatever. More kids at the state championship. I'm fine with that. And she doesn't even realize she's running. She has no clue, right? So we have to go find her, get her warmed up, get her mind right. And then the other 2 girls that were running, they're running the 200, and both of them kind of have some little bitty injuries here or there, soreness and stuff like that. And they're not really excited about running the 4x4. I'm like, guys, like if we run and we get second or better or whatever, we'll win our first time. You guys got to run. So my leadoff leg, she's freaking out because she's already been told, I don't know if we're running the 4x4. What's her excuse to me? She says, Banta, I didn't have time to warm up. Girl, you had 12 hours to warm up. What have you been doing? Can't find blocks, can't find batons. I find a block, I find a baton. I run to the holding area, and all the girls are lining up, and here's Karen Lee, our second alternate, and they go, Coach, your team can't run. Wow. What's going on? Somebody hurt? No, nobody's hurt. She's not on our list. I go, she's our second alternate. What are you talking about? And he gives me the paper, and she's not listed. But here's the deal. They did a new company with a new contractor. They didn't put any alternates on the paper for any of the teams. I go, guys, come on. Do you think all 8 of our relays decided to only put 4 people in? They didn't put the alternate. Well, we don't know who she is. I go, look her number up on the thing. This is the only event she's at. They go, Coach, we don't have that. I go, okay, so I'm going to have to pull out my phone. And I'm literally, this is what I'm saying. And I'm pissed. So I'm going through the phone. I'm like, there she is, And of course, now I'm way out of pocket energy-wise. And I tell the girls, I'm like, you go out there and dominate and let these girls know what you're about. This is ridiculous what they tried to do. You go out there and put it to them. Scream like a lunatic. So, of course, what does my leadoff leg do? She PRs in the 200 in a 400. Now, you, of course, know what that's going to be. So she dies an ugly death on the back end of the 200. And it looks, the most awful thing. And then the other girls heroically get us back in the mix. And my anchor leg gets us all the way up to second and pushing on the number 1 girl. But she also is running out of her race pattern, which we'll talk about tomorrow. And of course, she ends up dying, and we fade all the way back to 7th. And we miss out on the state championship by 5 points. And the team that beats us is a school that doesn't even exist anymore. The last thing they did as a private high school was win a state title and the school closed. So they had a banner that's going nowhere. And the sister of that girl that ran anchor came down and started yelling and screaming at me because I embarrassed her sister, and it's awful, you know, and I spent 30 minutes calming them down, and we hug it out, and the girls are crying because they're just upset. And I tell them I love them. And I'm not worried about me losing. I've lost plenty of times. I've had girls tell me no for dates when I was a young man. I lost all the time until I found that one pretty girl who finally married me. You know, this is I'm just a loser. That's what I've done. But I was very worried about these girls because all of those girls were coming back except for the leadoff leg. And I'm like, I want to make sure that we don't screw this up because we're going to do it the next year. Okay, fast forward. I know I'm running over time, but it's really important that I finish the story. Okay? Next year comes back. I get honored by being one of the 2 youngest people ever entered into the Hall of Fame in Missouri. Yay! Big head Banta. Look how great we are. Then within a week, we have a school protest, and a whole bunch of teachers are criticized, and they erase stuff and this and that, and a kid committed a false flag, wrote the N-word on mirrors in all of our bathrooms. The kid happened to be African American. That doesn't matter, okay? Doesn't matter, all right? But he committed that false flag to create this event because he was a very broken person. And the hurt and the pain that all the teachers and the kids felt from this was real. It basically destroyed our school. But hey, I got a good track and field team. We'll be all right. A week later, I find out I have a brain tumor, which is this thing right here on my head. Now, it's non-cancerous, it's an acoustic neuroma, but that's a pretty bad week. You go from, look how great I am, to, you might not live. Now, I haven't had surgery on it. If I look this good, which I know you're like, good looking, but like, it's slow growing. And so we've held off on it because of a bunch of different medical things that we were just gonna wait. And I'll probably have to have surgery within a year and a half here to get rid of it. But I can't hear out of this ear at all. So if you talk to me, you'll notice I turned you this way to hear you. And it messes with my balance, which is not a big deal. I'm okay there. But the thing is, when they remove it, I could lose my facial nerve, which means I can't emote, close my eye, all sorts of stuff. It's ugly. So not a good week. We get to the state championship. The meet goes about as good as it could go. Everything goes right. Everything goes well. Overnight, Nena Opara, who is this stud right here, she tells me, Banta, my hamstrings were cramping all night long. I feel like I can't walk. I might have torn my hamstring, pulled my hamstring because of the hamstring cramp. Okay. Well, here's the deal, Nena. We're going to go out real slow and pick up your pace, and we'll move through the race. We'll start slow, and get faster and faster and faster, and we're just going to go event by event. And I said, hey, you know, one night I had the situation when I was playing rugby, and my legs cramped up on me, and I was having the exact same thing as you, and I warmed up really well, and I had the best game of my life. That was a lie. That never happened, all right? But we went event by event by event. And her and her teammate were the 2 fastest girls. And I got a phone call before these girls were freshmen, and a text message from my buddy, Scott Tate. And he sent me a video. He goes, I got one coming for you. And what I didn't share for you is Scott Tate was the guy who got hurt. Scott Tate's daughter is the one that's holding the trophy. Scott Tate was the one who got hurt in the 4x4, who I didn't run for. And he was a real strong personality. And I was very afraid that he was going to be pissed at me because I cost them a state medal and I didn't run. No, he wasn't pissed at me at all because he's a cool guy. He pulled me aside. He said, this is your program now. You got to represent. You got to make it yours. Well, I had no idea that wouldn't be as an athlete. That would be as a coach, right? And his daughter was a stud, and she was super fast. So anyway, we get all the way through the events. Nena survives. We get to the 200. This is the first time that Nena and her best friend Kaylin, Scott Tate's daughter, have a chance to win an individual state title, because before that, there was a girl who is a monster who won every state event in the flat sprints until Sky won, but she had graduated, and then that's why Sky was able to win the 100 and the 200. So this is the first time either of these girls will have a chance to win. Now think about what these girls went through. They lost the season for COVID. Both of them suffered multiple injuries, all the protests that happened in school, not being able to be in school. And then those two girls, even though they're best friends, had to compete against each other every day as the two best girls. And both of them really want to win. So I say a prayer with one of my buddies that they get through the race, and I run down to the start line, because at Missouri we can go to the start line at the 200. Now the conversation I get with them, similar to what I did out of pocket, but controlled. I said, Parkway Central, give me your eyes. And they turned and looked at me. And I said, you realize that's your best friend? Do you realize that one of you is going to win and one of you is going to take second? Now I'm saying this in front of the other kids. The other kids are like, what are you saying? You know, what the heck's going on here? I said, but guess what? It doesn't matter to me which one of you wins. And it shouldn't matter to you either, because when you both cross the line, we will have won our first state title as a team in our school's history. And you heard, we've had 10 top four trophies. So I've been the bridesmaid as a coach a lot of times without winning them, okay? And I told them, and I said, you girls are gonna have a privilege that no one ever gets. This is such a rare thing. You're gonna get to run toe to toe, chest to chest, hip to hip with your best friend and cross as champions. Make sure you savor this moment and enjoy it. All right, let's watch the race. I appreciate you guys hanging and letting me finish. So that's Scott Tate. I told you he's a stud. That's a scary dude back in the day. All right, that's our first district title. I'm the dude doing the, this thing in the front. That's Kaylin's cousin or uncle right there. Okay, that's Kaylin. And here's Nana and Kaylin running the 200. Hopefully it comes up. I have no idea how the sound's gonna go. It doesn't matter. I remember what I told Nana to do. And they're both 4 and 5. So the race gets done. The girls come over to me. I hug them, probably for too long. I'm crying because I'm a crier. I tell them I love them, and I thank them for what they did for our town, for our school, for their teammates, for their coach, and for themselves. Thank you for giving me that gift. I called my wife, my dad, and my mom, told them the news, and I had one more phone call to make, and that was to Scott Tate. And I said, hey man, thank you for being so respectful to me all those years ago and not being mad at me because I failed to get us a state medal and to help us get a state trophy. You gave me a mission decades ago, and I've been on that mission ever since then. And I said, what a beautiful thing that it's your daughter that gets to complete it. I'm sorry. Thank you for entrusting me with your child. We did it. We've won. So, in closing, okay, give me a second. I gotta find my thing so I don't screw it up because I'm all emotion. Okay. Thank you for giving me so much time. Time goes quickly. Don't waste it. We all want to win, but that can't be the reason why we do this. Okay? Our real purpose is to focus on providing a vessel for someone's emotional growth. Think about who's done the same for you and their impact on your life. You sit at the intersection of so many people's whys. Ask yourself what you are doing with the gift of your mutual shared presence. You all have been empowered to change the trajectory of the lives you touch. Our time here is short, and no one can guarantee how long we've got. Savor each moment. Don't be afraid to be honest. Hold the young people to a high standard. Demand they seek excellence. And most importantly, make it abundantly clear you love each and every one of them. Work to that why daily, and you will be blessed to rise and face the morning of a life well lived. Thank you, guys.